Aaron Rodgers just came out of the darkness. And so, Larador, I'm going to give you two thoughts that I had. Initially, I'll give you my first thought. When Tom Brady first retired from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I came out here the next day on Brandon's Word, and I said, if I'm Tampa, I make a call to Green Bay for one of either Aaron Rodgers or Jordan Love. Because I felt that, listen, Tampa's roster, I don't care how bad they look last year with Brady, the roster is still good enough. They have arguably 2 to 3 elite receivers. Their defense is still good. It's not great, but it's still good. They have some nice pieces. Their offensive line is decent. Like, to me, Tampa is not in complete rebuild mode, even though they weren't as good last year. I feel like they just need a little bit of an upgrade and better coaching because I felt like just last year was all in disarray. So I said, Aaron, I could see Aaron going to Tampa. I could see them maybe giving up a Chris Godwin and a 3rd-round pick or something. Give Aaron the number 1 receiver. He needs to go to Tampa. Give Tampa a quarterback and let Green Bay move forward with Jordan Love. But my other thought with Rodgers is, I'm looking at the NFC, right? And I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm a huge Philadelphia Eagles fan, but it's not out of the realm of possibilities to say it's Philly, Dallas, and maybe San Francisco if they get the quarterback right as potential threats in the NFC. I don't buy the Rams. We know Arizona's a mess. I don't buy the Giants and Daniel Jones. I don't buy the Commanders yet until they get a quarterback. Minnesota, I don't trust. I think Detroit is a year away. Obviously, the NFC South, none of these people you can trust. So if I'm Aaron, I think I'm just going to stay in Green Bay because even though they didn't win the division last year, I don't think Minnesota's as good this year. I think Green Bay with a couple, if you draft maybe one more receiver, get the offensive line, get a corner. Like, I think Green Bay next year, as bad as they were last year, I think they could be the 3rd best team in a weak NFC conference.
I agree with you on the NFC, but I think that ship has sailed in Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers. I think he wants a fresh start somewhere. I don't know where. I like if I had to guess, I would I would say New York would be a nice fresh start with that young core. They just need a quarterback.
Yeah, but I don't like Aaron in New York, especially with a defensive coach and Robert Saleh. Aaron in New York just doesn't mix to me. Plus, you got to go for Josh Allen twice a year. Miami, New England, obviously with Belichick and their defense. Like, I don't love going through the AFC because you have Mahomes, Herbert. Obviously, we'll see what Denver does with Russell Wilson, Cincinnati, Baltimore, if they keep Lamar Jackson, the Browns with Deshaun Watson. Like, there's so much competition there that the NFC is a much easier path. Even if Aaron goes to the Jets, I'll put it this way. Even if he goes to the Jets, Larador, in my humble opinion, they would still be at best 3rd in that division.
I agree, but there's more competition, and I feel like Aaron Rodgers thrives for competition, and I think, like I said before, I think that ship has sailed with Green Bay, honestly, because they haven't done anything to better the team around them. So I feel like he wants a fresh start. He needs to hurry up and announce it because I would like to see what his thoughts are and where he's going to go if he goes anywhere.
Can I counter that and say, because you said the team hasn't done much to put everything around him, the team wanted to bring back Davante Adams. It was Aaron Rodgers who decided he wanted $50 million instead of taking maybe 40 to 45 to bring Davante Adams back. He is basically the reason why Davante Adams asked for a trade and why he is now a Las Vegas Raider. Aaron had the number 1 seed the last, before this year, 2 years in Tampa, lost in the NFC Championship game to Brady at Lambeau. The year after that, lost to Jimmy Garoppolo, completely melted down in that divisional round. So this talk that Green Bay hasn't done a lot to put the team around Rodgers, I disagree with that. He's had pieces throughout his career. Yeah, the defense hasn't been great, But the last couple years, especially, they had pass rushers. They had Za'Darius Smith. They had Preston Smith. They had a great corner in Jair Alexander, a great defensive line led by Kenny Clark. It was Rodgers who did not get the job done when it counted.
You realize you just named all defensive players, right?
Yeah, it's
That
that's what I'm saying. But he had Devontae Adams. He had Jordy Nelson as well. He had Randall Cobb, Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon, a great offensive line. What about Bakhtiari, a left tackle? Had Corey Lindsey for a while at center. So this notion he hasn't had any pieces to me, I disagree.
I can see your point. I don't know. Now that you say it, maybe you're right. But I just think that that ship has sailed, and he wants a fresh start. I would like to see him get a fresh start somewhere else to see what he can do with a new team.
Let me ask you this then, because you said the ship has sailed on Rodgers. Has the ship sailed in your mind, Baltimore, Lamar Jackson? First of all, if he doesn't stay in Baltimore, where do you suspect he lands?
I'm gonna uh give you. I don't know if it's really a hot take, but I'm gonna say Miami
Okay.
with Tua. I mean, not with Tua, with the situation with Tua, with the concussions. I think they're gonna move on from Tua. Although I like Tua in Miami, but the concussions are worrisome. So I say Lamar goes to Miami.
That's interesting, and I've heard some people bring that up as well. I'm going to talk about both teams here for a second. Baltimore, in my opinion, we saw without Lamar Jackson this year, is a bottom 5 team in the NFL. I
Right,
don't care. I don't care if they made the playoffs. I don't care if they played well against Cincinnati in that wild card game. They could not move the freaking football with Lamar Jackson out. Tyler Huntley was awful. He was okay 2 years ago. Last year he was awful. That Baltimore offense average, I think it was like 12 points a game without Lamar Jackson at quarterback. It was almost unwatchable. And
right.
with him last year, they had 10 double-digit leads. Now their defense obviously blew those double-digit leads, and they could not put that team away. But they had more double-digit leads last year than Cincinnati, Buffalo, Kansas City, Philadelphia. Like, they with Lamar Jackson are a legitimate Super Bowl contender.
Right.
That's why I don't understand. If I was Baltimore, I get it, right? He's a mobile quarterback. He's going to take punishment. He has been injury prone. But when you watch them with him versus without him, they are a completely different team. To me, the way this offense is structured, because they don't have a lot of wide receivers, the way the defense is structured, you have to pay this man maximum amount of dollars. If he wants Deshaun Watson money, give it to him, because you know what? I hate to say it, he has done more on his resume at this point, specifically with the MVP, than what Watson has done up to this point in his career.
So you would give Lamar 5 years, 250 million?
I would absolutely give Lamar 5 years, 250 million. What option do I have to stink in a division where Pittsburgh with Kenny Pickett, who was not good at all, almost and arguably should have made the playoffs if it wasn't for the Jets blowing it at the end of the game in week 18. Cincinnati with Burrow is going to be around for 10 to 15 years. If the Browns get this thing right with Watson and the offensive coaches, then they're going to be around. So what option do I have? Baltimore doesn't have an option.
Baltimore doesn't have an option, but I feel like they're basing it off of the stuff. They're basing paying him off the style of quarterback he is. I feel like he's too injury prone and too much of a running quarterback to pay him all that money.
I mean, if
And
if,
he
if
wants it.
you're gonna do that, Larador, you might as well tank this year. Todd Monken, the new offensive coordinator, you might as well not even have an offense this year. You might as well win 2 games, draft a quarterback, and completely change your entire offense for a team that, I mean, with Lamar Jackson, they were what the last 2 years, 8-3, 8-4, something like that, and then he gets hurt, and they don't win a game the rest of the year.
But you know the history of Baltimore. They're pretty good at drafting, so they might say screw it. let's let Lamar go and start over. They might
Okay,
not
but
they
okay,
might not
I
be in a
I
rebuild.
agree. I agree, Larador, but again, my counterpoint to that is this. That was Baltimore 5, 10 years ago. The NFL is changing. There is a revolution in football today. Defensive head coaches, Bill Belichick, Mike Tomlin, even Sean McDermott sometimes in Buffalo, will completely outmatch sometimes when you go against the clever, great offensive minded head coaches in this league. The NFL is now no longer a pocket standing quarterback league. It is a mobile quarterback driven league outside of Burrow and obviously a couple people. So most of these teams have mobile quarterbacks. To me, you embrace it and you go all in with it and you invest in a good, decent backup, knowing there's a chance he could miss a couple games a year.
Ugh, I don't know. He wants the money guaranteed too. 250 million. I heard it. He wants 5 years, 250 million fully guaranteed, and he's not gonna move off that.
Hey, if I was Baltimore, I would give him that. If I was Washington, I'd give him that. Miami is a weird situation because of the Tua situation.
Right.
Now before last year, I admit to you, I thought Tua was a complete bust. I did
I
not think
agree.
he was all that. I still don't really love Tua. I think Mike McDaniel was a great coach. They have two great receivers. I really thought Miami schemed everything perfect for Tua, but their offense did not look the same without Tua last year either. Tua is a different case because of the concussions, but I don't know. I feel like I would give Tua this year, and then if he gets hurt again, who am I to tell somebody he can't play anymore?
Right.
It's kind of my take on it. I think you got to give Tua this year. You see what you have, and then if he gets hurt again, then you can. I mean, they have extra picks, I believe, from moving back with San Francisco in the Trey Waynes trade, so you can kind of massage that around. But I don't know. Before this year, I was advocating for them to move off Tua, and now I don't think they should.
I feel like you have to move off him now with the QB carousel going on this offseason. It's their best chance of upgrading at quarterback.
Well, let me ask you this though, because we don't think Rodgers is going to Miami. If you don't win Lamar Jackson, there, what upgrade are you going to make? To me, there's no upgrade you could make off the top of my head. Derek Carr is not necessarily an upgrade. Jimmy Garoppolo is not an upgrade. I wouldn't say Jordan Love's an upgrade. Those are sort of your big three fish out there in free agency, if you will.
I would say Derek Carr would like to be in Miami with with those weapons, with that coaching staff.
Listen, I love Derek Carr, but is he an upgrade over Tua? I don't know. I think Derek Carr is going to Carolina personally. That NFC South is a complete mess. He gets an offensive head coach in Frank Reich. He's got a great defense. It'll be the best defense he's ever played with. They have DJ Moore, pretty good receiver. You get some offensive linemen in there, like depending on what Tampa decides to do, Atlanta's a mess. New Orleans is certainly a mess because they don't have the draft capital, in my opinion. I think they're going to not be very good this year and go after a quarterback in next year's draft. So this window here, I think Derek Carr in Carolina with Frank Reich is a perfect fit.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. That's interesting because what aren't they talking to Sam Darnold about an extension?
I did not hear about that, but I would be interested to see Sam Darnold as a backup. I don't think Darnold's an all that starter. I think he's a really good backup. I think he'd be the perfect backup for Derek Carr, to be honest with you. Uh, and I think that again, Tampa, we don't know what they're gonna do. If Derek Carr doesn't go to Carolina, the other place I'd love to see him go is Tampa. I think the NFC South is perfect for him because that division is so bad, and he's been a really good quarterback for so many years in a division where you got to deal with Mahomes and Herbert. Like, just go win a division and get to the playoffs with a okay roster. Carolina's roster is probably below average, 17th, 18th, somewhere in the league. But to me, whoever gets a quarterback in the South is going to win that division next year.
let me ask you a question real quick. Would you feel different about New York if they had a offensive coach?
Which New York Jets or Giants? Well, obviously
The
Jets have a defensive head coach, so it'd be the Jets. Um, I would feel better about them, yes. Because I am very, and I've told people this, and you're probably going to disagree with me. Okay, if I was an NFL general manager slash owner today, I would only hire offensive head coaches. I would not hire a defensive head coach. To me, it is a disadvantage. Larador, you look at the 14 playoff teams we add this year, 10 of them offensive coaches. By the divisional round, there was only one defensive head coach left standing, Sean McDermott. And in that divisional round, McDermott looked outcoached in the snow by Cincinnati, who just completely obliterated them basically from the first snap. The last 2 years, we've had AFC Championship, NFC Championship. Those are 4 games the last 2 years. All 4 coaches standing, offensive minded head coaches.
It's honestly interesting you say that because I have the same take on it. I never understood how defensive head coaches can get head coaching jobs when this is the offensive style league.
Exactly. And so here's the thing, right? We talk about in life of adaptability, being adaptable. It's 2023. There are more things that I can adapt to than others. I'm still the person that doesn't love streaming. I still like using cable. I'm a person that still uses a computer. I'll use a desktop if I have to over using my cell phone for everything. Those things are kind of hard to adapt to for me. But for me, offensive football and adaptability is not that hard for me because the rules have changed. Offensively, you have an advantage because you know what route you're running and you can use motion to dictate what the defense is going to do and set up your matchups. And even, again, the great defensive head coaches in this league, McDermott, Belichick, Tomlin, I'm watching their offenses and they look like they're run from 1950. New England and Pittsburgh, yeah, they win games. They win 7-8 games a year. They are the most boring NFL watches, and it's not even close. Like, you watch Miami and Buffalo this year against New England, like, Belichick, what are you doing? This is a complete mismatch.
What 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 is the last defensive coach to be successful in the NFL as a head coach?
That's a good question. Well, the last one to win a Super Bowl outside of Belichick is probably just racking over my brain. Maybe Dan Quinn in Atlanta, John Fox, and well, obviously Dan Quinn didn't win, but he made it. John Fox won it, but he had Peyton Manning on his last legs. That was 2 defensive head coaches. Or no, that was Gary Kubiak. I'm sorry, Gary Kubiak won that Super Bowl with Denver, so he was an offensive head coach. It was Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll beating Denver that Super Bowl 48 where they beat down. But again, that was almost 10 years ago at this point now. So yeah, I don't get it. I wish of these defensive coaches, they almost feel tone deaf to me. It's like if I was a general manager right now starting a franchise, I would go, okay, I'm gonna get a head coach, I'm gonna get a quarterback, I'm going to get a pass rush. I'm going to get an offensive line, and then I'm going to get weapons. This talk, oh, well, we need a linebacker. Do you know how many teams play nickel and dime nowadays? They don't use, most teams use 1 to 2 linebackers. I'm saying you need 1 or 2 good linebackers, but oh, we need 4 to 5 linebackers. Like the Bears. This is a great conversation, Larador, to step into the Bears. Justin Fields, right? I don't know how good he is because he has a defensive-minded head coach with no offensive weapons.
Right.
I mean, I'm watching the Bears and I'm saying, you fired Matt Nagy. I thought took a lot of crap in Chicago for nothing. I actually thought he was a pretty good head coach. Hell, we got Mitch Trubisky to the freaking playoffs. So I'm watching Chicago, and I'm like, you fire an offensive head coach for a defensive head coach. You draft Justin Fields. Oh, we traded for Claypool. Look at us. We're upgrading the receiving core. Claypool stinks. I've been trying to tell people this in Pittsburgh for years. He wasn't that good. He had one good rookie year. He could barely separate. Didn't do anything in Chicago. With that being said, I don't know if any of these quarterbacks in this draft are an upgrade over Fields. Like, if I'm Chicago, I can tear this thing down. I can trade the pick. I can get maybe another one. Then I can trade back again. I could get 2 2s, 2 3s. I could set myself up. I could build around Fields. If you do this draft right, draft 2 receivers, draft a tight end, draft some offensive linemen. Just go exclusively offense and build this thing.
Justin Fields has what it takes to be an NFL quarterback, and he's proved it in Chicago. Like you said, with nothing and a defensive head coach. I feel like you need to upgrade known pieces, of course, but Justin Fields has what it takes. I don't understand the trade Justin Fields talk, blah blah blah. I never understood that. I wouldn't give up on Justin Fields that soon.
Well, the only thing that I can speak to is you do realize that this is a real stat. He only has 5 wins in his NFL career. Now there are quarterbacks that have won more. I mean, there have been more raw quarterbacks. Obviously, Jalen Hurts. Remember when people were giving up on Jalen Hurts a couple of years ago? Said he couldn't throw. I said, give him AJ Brown. Jalen Hurts is going to be an MVP type candidate. I predicted it before the season. I didn't predict my team to go to the Super Bowl, but I predicted they were going to be really good because we got a #1 receiver. That's
Right.
what you need to do. Go out. If I was Chicago, I would say, hey, second or third for DeAndre Hopkins. Like, go out and get a receiver.
I never understood why they paid Claypool that money to be a #1 receiver, and he's like a legit 3.
He's a legit 3. On bad teams, he's a 2. I'll tell you the other thing about this offensive defensive coaching thing, right? Daniel Bleepin Jones. He is. I don't believe in him at all. I think he's a terrible quarterback. And yet the Giants won a playoff game with one legitimate weapon, a running back. And they won a playoff game because of how good the coaching is over there, because they schemed people open. Again, you're watching the Giants. They're competent on offense. You're watching teams like Chicago. Their receivers can't separate for 10 bleeping yards. What the hell is wrong with this league?
And you understand that Brian Dable is an offensive mind.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Okay.
Daniel Jones is mediocre, and I would not pay him the $45 to $50 million he's asking for.
Okay, I want to shift gears then, because I want to ask you this question. The Browns have an offensive minded head coach. His name's Kevin Stefanski.
Yes.
For the life of me, they have an offensive minded head coach, and they're running offense like it's 1950. Two running backs. They're great on script. A lot of under center, not a lot of spread. Apparently, that's going to change this year, and I'm glad it will. Hopefully, more 11 personnel, shotgun, spread the field out. Man, it's Stefanski. He better freaking win games this year, and he better be a pretty damn good play caller, because the Browns look like they have an offensive-minded head coach that plays like he's a defensive head coach.
I'm gonna cut Stefanski some slack. He made Jacoby Brissett look like a decent quarterback, better than what he has been. Because honestly, when we first got Jacoby, I was kind of iffy on him, what he would do with Deshaun being out. But I feel like Stefanski's play calling was iffy because it's just my opinion. I think they tried to change the playbook when Deshaun came back, and it was too late. And I feel like they can only run certain stuff because Deshaun didn't know as much coming into the season so late.
Well,
I feel like Kevin Stefanski is gonna redeem himself